Hey, hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Geoff International, where our mission is to transform your stinking thinking into unstoppable comebacks. Unlock your potential through the messaging of the guests that we bring to you from all over the world, all different backgrounds, all professionals to living on the street to, a mom that said, I've had enough. I mean, all over the board. And I got to tell you, today you want to make sure you're sitting down, you have your notepad together. And man, I just spent a few minutes with our guest coming up. Woohoo! I'm telling you, you want to be here, you want to be present. Right? For those of you that are looking for a way to elevate where your situation is, elevate and conquer. That's right. The message for the show, that's appropriate name, elevate and conquer. Whatever it is that's in your way, whatever it is that's holding you back, whatever that stinking thinking has been, doesn't have to any longer control you. Again, my name is Geoff Tyson, and I'm the host of Conversations with Geoff International, and we are happy to be here today to let you know that the stinking thinking, yes, I say it all the time, can be the platform to a new way of living, can be the platform to that next level of purpose. But you have to do the work, as my guest is going to talk to you about, and all these amazing things, right? So let us fill your soul today with some gratitude. Let us elevate your belief in how you feel about yourself. You may be sky high, but there's always room to grow. Or you may be like I've been the last couple of weeks, man, stumbling around, feeling lost, wondering what the heck is going on sometimes, right? Or you may be in the middle and you're getting ready to do some other thing. Wherever you are, I encourage you to call your friends, sit your butt down, grab your pencil or whatever you take notes on, right? And participate in this conversation with Geoff today. So let me just give you a quick bio on our guest. He had a session before the session, and it was just so powerful. And you guys just missed it. But guess what? There's more to come. Yes, indeed. There's going to be more of that. So anyway, let me stay focused, all right? Help me stay focused today, guys. Man, I need that help today. You could probably tell, right? But also, too, I ask you to make sure you share and subscribe and get this message out to everybody that you know. All right. So anyway, quick bio about my new friend. She's actually been a couple of years. Anyway, she's an expert in human performance and elite transformation. Boy, she's a business owner. She started and founder of Healthcare Elevations, working with physicians, other leaders, help elevating their leadership, growing their organizations, and building thriving businesses without burnout. How do you do that? How do you stay fired up? How do you stay locked in without going crazy and just feeling like, I can't take it anymore? I want to hear more about that from her, right? And so she's local. She does other things. She's a speaker. I actually met her at a speak off, and I don't know if we'll ever talk about that, but I said, man, I like this person. There's something special and unique about her. And I'm going to let her talk a little bit more about herself. So ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome to Conversations with Geoff, our mission around elevating and conquering, my friend, LynAnn Weaver.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Hey, yeah, we're glad to have you, LynAnn. I mean, it's been great kind of just chatting up, like I mentioned before we even got started. So,
no, we were spitting some gold earlier.
I'm saying, man, we should have said, but you have so much more to offer, I'm sure. So thank you for being here today. And I know you're a busy person, so let's just jump into it.
Awesome.
I mean, I gave you a quick highlight, but let people know a little bit more maybe about why you got into your business or where you were before business, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Sure. So before I started my practice, I was the regional director of neurosciences. I oversaw 9 hospitals in 2 different states. And throughout my tenure in healthcare administration, I'd really started to see the differences between people who we would call, our high performers, the ones who are excited every day, leaving energized, fully fulfilled, and actually excited to come to work. And then our others, who we'll just call our other group for nicety.
Yes.
All started out well-intentioned, but you would usually start to see them be lower energy, not hitting their goals as quickly or at all, become more frustrated. We would have more HR issues with them. There were more interpersonal conflicts, more challenges, and they weren't happy. And it just emanated from their body. Like you could feel it.
Yeah.
And looking at those two groups, and then you have the middle range, right? But it's how do we move this group of others, at least not even just into this middle group of like so doing okay, but actually move them into this group of high performers, which I'm a certified high performance coach through the High Performance Institute. And we define high performance as achieving heightened levels of sustained success over the long term without sacrificing health, well-being, or positive relationships along the way.
Yes.
And so many of the people that end up burned out, it's because of all of those things that they've sacrificed without ever refilling or refueling.
Yeah. How do you just stop you there? You talk about refilling and refueling, because I think people miss that step. Right? And that's probably one of the key things that starts to trigger into burnout, right? I mean, so what do you do? Talk about that for a second?
Sure. First and foremost, as with everything, we call this step 0, but it's self-awareness. What is it that truly brings you joy? When we disconnect from our passion or our purpose in the work that we do, or in our relationships and health and in any area of life, when we are disconnected from our purpose, it's really easy to slip into that negativity loop where all we start to see is what I don't like about this, what I'm unhappy with, how much energy it's draining from me, instead of being able to refill and refuel based off of where I can get my energy from. What is it about this experience I'm excited about? Why did I start this to begin with? And even more importantly, who do I want to be throughout this journey so that I can get the long-term outcomes that I'm really after? Those are some of the things that can make a really big difference when we look at long-term success.
Yeah, I like that. You talked about the what, the why, and the who in that space. And man, because a lot of times we don't know.
No.
I mean, we think we know, and well, oftentimes we get talked out of what we really know we're supposed to do, right? We talked about that earlier, about people that want to look out for you and have their best interest at heart for our safety. But really, that piece of it kind of gets in the way too, doesn't it? Trying to find that.
Yeah, what we were talking about earlier is people often put limitations over us, or they share their perspective with good intentions. They're wanting to keep us safe. They're wanting us to succeed. They want us to avoid any failures that they've experienced or seen somebody else. So they'll speak these limitations over us of, oh, you shouldn't try that because, this person failed. Yeah. Oh, well, don't start your own business, or don't go for that promotion because what if?
Yeah.
Well, what if you get fired? What if you lose your job? What if you get laid off? What if you go bankrupt? Okay, well, that negativity bias is there for a purpose. It's there for a reason. It's there to keep us safe. Unfortunately, that was really effective in historical times, not quite as much now.
Yeah.
We are programmed to stay safe.
Yes.
And safety now means not getting rejected. It means being respected by other people and not judged. It means other things to different people. But when we look at what really creates success, it is the opposite of chasing safety. When we chase safety, we get compliant and complacent. Yes. And that's often when we start to get bored and burned out.
Yeah. And we've had excuses or mediocrity of comfortableness. I have a nice lifestyle, but you really want to help people to do other things in your life, right? But it's comfortable now.
Yeah.
And so I like that the safety now means, man. Ooh. But you know, I've always, what do you tell people? Because I'm the one that jumps off the edge and builds my wings as I land on the ground, right? But there are people that need certainty. This is what we're talking to right now, right? Have to have all the answers and don't have the ability to just forgive themselves. It's a part of that too, right? Mm-hmm. Mm.
And everybody needs certainty. Certainty is one of our basic human needs. But if we're talking about self-forgiveness, which I want to make sure I'm answering your question.
You are. Go ahead. I mean, yeah. Yep.
When we look at what we're capable of achieving, so much of it comes down to the way that we see ourselves and the identity that we choose.
Mm.
The hard part is, or the unfortunate part rather, is most people never actively choose their identity. They let the world tell them who they are, what they're capable of, and who they can become. And when I say the world, I mean that parent who may not have encouraged you always, again, back to it is probably out of their own self-judgment and fear.
Yep.
Or the teacher, the peers, your boss, any coworkers that are showing us what most people are capable of. And it actually depresses the ability that we have and the actions that we take because we're seeking that safety. Well, if they're not saying that I can do this, why would I try?
Yeah.
And it really comes down to, how do we love ourselves enough?
Ooh, there we go.
That we're okay with trying and potentially failing.
Yeah.
To take that risk to see if we can break beyond the limits and the ceilings that other people place on us, knowingly or unknowingly. Most oftentimes when somebody shares something with you and essentially frames it as, you can't do this, it's out of protection for you. But what they may not be realizing is, unless you love yourself, trust yourself, and develop enough self-confidence, you're not going to push past their perceived limitations on you, and you're going to actually be refrained from achieving what you are capable of and what you were created to accomplish.
Yeah. Actually, it is putting that little bar around you and trapping you inside of your own thoughts.
It is.
When they do that to you, right? And I love the part about we got a 2 million-year-old brain, and I always talk about the caveman days, right? When you and I are walking out in the jungle, and all of a sudden this big beautiful thing comes up, and next thing you know, you're gone, and because he's eating you, and then now I have to escape, or I'm gone too. But we learn those types of things, right? Safety. There's safety in how we choose things, and what you're talking about, man, is it's like, man, no matter who says whatever to you, if you love yourself enough, value yourself enough, this is kind of what I'm hearing you say, then you'll be able to take that next step.
Yeah. And having clarity on what your vision is. Regardless of what anybody else around you says, what is your vision for success? What does success look like? Some people, it's a certain dollar amount in a bank account. Other people, it's, I have a family. I have, 2 beautiful children, 5 beautiful kids, whatever that number is. And I get to spend X number of hours a week with them, or I get to, do homeschooling, or I'm traveling once a quarter, or I get to work from wherever, whenever, and not be tied to a job. It really just depends on what somebody's definition of success is. And society has told us, especially, I know you work mostly with men, gender roles are very different in this too.
Yeah.
Historically, it was, woman goes home, be's at home with the kids. Well, I know so many women who don't want children. And so they're getting constantly inundated with this message of, oh, well, what, are you okay? Like, you should want this.
Yeah. What's wrong? Why don't you want a kid? What's tapping you on your head? Like,
yeah. But that's not success to them. Being a parent isn't their success.
Right.
And so being able to love ourselves enough to say, no, just because that's what most other people want, it doesn't mean that I have to want that too.
Yes.
And for men, oftentimes it's that, okay, you know, your title, your status, your this, your dollar amount, that's what makes you worthy and valuable.
Yeah.
Is it?
Mm.
Or is there something deeper inside of you that you get to give the world, but you have to first give it to yourself?
Man,
And without awareness on what that is and clarity on what that is, you'll never reach success because you don't even know your own definition.
Yeah, and that's just like, wow, that, you know, we should talk about this subject another time, because part of the men that are in that space often have all that going on with them, and then they have this image of a dressed up garbage can, you know, meaning everything's good on the outside, and on the inside of them, they've stuffed all of the pain and all the other things, right? And so they really, they are limited to doing things that really matter sometimes. And we chase the success, we chase the status, we chase all those things that don't really resonate in the heart and the spirit. You know, you just kind of touched on some of that stuff. That was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that. So how did you find clarity? I know you have a thriving business now, and you looked around and you kind of took pictures of different people and kind of how you can help them. But can you share a time when you weren't sure of anything in your life? You know, maybe what we were talking about before the show started, when you were in a situation with a physician.
Yeah. I don't know that there's been a time where I wasn't sure about anything.
Love that. Okay.
That's one of the things that I've been blessed to have a very strong faith since a very young age. So I've always found certainty in my Creator.
Yeah.
And that's just my personal journey. But
love that.
When knowing that I had that certainty, no matter what, has made every hard circumstance, I won't say bearable, but it's made it so that I know that there's another level, there's something to overcome, and that I'm not by myself throughout that entire process. And it just gives me a different perspective than, you know, my friends or colleagues who don't have that same level of certainty.
Yeah.
And one thing that I guess if you were asking of one time where I wasn't necessarily certain, it was actually when I started my company. I knew I was being called to start a business. I knew that I wanted to make a bigger impact. I was already, you know, by most people's standards, doing very well. I was successful. I had respect at work. I, you know, oversaw several dozens to hundreds of physicians and clinical team members, and had a you know, great salary. But to me, I wanted something more. And I actually felt limited by even having 9 campuses in 2 states. I didn't feel like I could make the level of impact working my way up to become a CEO of a hospital, which is what I thought I wanted to do.
Gotcha.
And I realized as I was seeing my docs burn out, as I was seeing our staff turnover, us losing nurses left and right, and then everybody going into COVID, where there was so much uncertainty, so much fear, so much unknown.
Yeah.
And seeing the devastating impacts that made, and then being able to help some of my team, you know, kind of come off of a ledge, so to speak, not leave healthcare.
Yeah.
Which I actually did. There was one situation where we had everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong. Okay. And I had 2 of our best physicians come into my office minutes apart from each other. The first one throws his badge on my desk and said, "I didn't sign up for this. I'm not doing my practice fast enough. I'm losing my family. And like, I don't know how to handle this right now. I'm so stressed. We can't keep doing this. Something has to change."
Yeah.
And I'm looking at his badge on my desk going, "Okay, are you telling me you're leaving? What's going on?" And It has to change or I'm done.
Mm.
I looked at him and I said, okay, let's figure this out. I said, give me a week. We'll come up with a game plan. Let's identify everything that's causing all of these frustrations, all of these pain points. And then let's figure out where we want to be. And we'll put together a plan so that we can get there.
Mm.
So many people are just like, oh my gosh, this isn't working. This isn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
Well, what did you actually want? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that sarcastically. It literally is. Most people don't even think about it.
They don't.
Some other way, but okay, what way is that? Like, what is your ideal vision of your life, of your career, of the way that you're showing up, of the way that your team is engaging? What does that look like, and how will you know when you've been successful in that?
Mm.
Because even if you know it, okay, well, our team gets along. We're hitting our financial goals. We're growing at X% per year. Okay, great. How do you know what your team getting along? Are you working with a great team? What does that look like?
Yeah.
And it's usually so surface level. But once we start to dive down into it and we get really specific and get really, really clear, again, clarity brings speed.
Clarity, yes.
Plan to help you achieve that. But without that clarity, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Or something happens, but it's probably not going to be what you want.
Right. And do you find sometimes when you're asking what they really want, they start telling you all the things they don't want?
Yes. And then it's one of those, we get, like, you've heard the phrase, you experience more of what you focus on.
Ooh, yes.
Whenever we are so hyper-focused on what we don't want, we actually do manifest or create that, because what we're doing is we're telling a part of our brain called the reticular activating system that essentially serves as the filter that lets information into us or not into our conscious awareness. We're getting hit by billions of bits of information a second.
Yeah.
Some studies show that the conscious mind can only process about 9 bits of information per second. Well, that's a lot that we're missing.
Yeah.
How does our brain know what to let into us and what not to? It's through the intention and the focus that we place. So when we're focused on something, whether it's what we do or do not want, we start to see things that make that more and more true.
Yeah.
So this is where, back to that identity and choosing self-love, if we choose our identity, and when I say identity, it's what we're actually thinking about ourselves. Like, how am I communicating to myself? What have I labeled myself as?
Yeah.
If I'm saying, oh, I can't do that, I'm incapable, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve that, I'm not smart enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough.
Yeah.
Guess what our RAS starts to let through into our conscious awareness? The things that make that true.
Yes.
Flip side, if we say, no, I am deserving of this, I may not know the answer right now, but I'm resourceful, so I can figure it out.
Yeah.
Guess what we start to see? And guess what? Our brain triggers us to actually start to solve those problems, to become more resourceful, to become more of the things that we're telling ourselves we are. So much of what we experience comes down to the way that we first communicate to ourselves. So when we have awareness of who we are, who we say we are, and who we believe we are,
yes,
then we say, does this serve me? Is it getting me closer to where I actually want to be? Yes or no? If no, how do I need to communicate to myself, love myself, think about myself, speak about myself in a way that allows me to create the outcomes and the reality that I'm actually wanting?
It's fantastic. I mean, that's the reality of it. That whole process. And from my simple version, it's the Stinkin Thinkin, but you've broken it down, right, from a much higher level. And it's something that people can do, right? What's the simple step for people that hear this and they already discredit themselves from being able to do this? What's the simple thing that you can do?
First step is to gain self-awareness, which can be really hard when you don't have self-awareness, to say, how aware am I?
Yeah.
One of the best ways is actually to ask others how you speak versus actually show up. But also wanting to remove that perception of other people. Journaling is a really great exercise.
Yeah.
doing a free write exercise, put some music on or don't. Set a timer and just start writing whatever comes to mind. It doesn't matter. You're not there to like judge your own writing or judge your own thinking, but it's literally, okay, who am I? Start with that prompt. Who am I?
Yeah.
And start writing down everything that comes to mind. Good, bad, ugly, otherwise. Because awareness brings choice, and choice gives us the ability to change. But without the truth and being truly self-aware of what's going on up here, we will never be able to have that choice to change. So once you've answered, who am I? My next favorite question that I use in any of my speeches that I give in schools is, who would I be if the world, i.e. my teachers, my parents, my friends, my colleagues, my boss, my whomever, who would I be if the world never told me who I could be?
Ooh. Wow.
And free write on that for another 5, 10, 15 minutes. Taking the limitations off, which can be very difficult sometimes because we've been programmed since pre-birth as to what's possible or not, based off our environment, the people that we're around, which is why community is so important.
Yeah, well, it's community. I mean, this has been fantastic. And I'm writing notes, and I'm going to steal some of your phrases too, just powerful. And when we talk about community, though, my experience, and then why it's so important for parents to really be paying attention to who the kids hang around with, right? I mean, what adulthood, the parents too, or even us, who we hang around with, because the influence, my older cousins, man, they created my identity for myself, right? Before I was able to, based off of, they didn't realize, I mean, they're just kids, right? How we pick on people and we give them those names. And, I had this large cranium, I still do, and big lips and big head. And they would say, if you lean too far to the left, you might fall over. But I wasn't laughing back then. I can laugh now. So we, as adults, we hang around the same noise, right? You're talking about it, and just some really, really great stuff. So some great tips on. Thank you for sharing those few tips. And then, what about that person? I mean, everybody has their own way of learning. Everybody has their own way of hearing things. But there's still some people out there that are at that point where they turn one way or another. And we're not magic. We can't create things for people. But I mean, when there's at that last step, you've given them something to do at the beginning. So now you're at the last step, and you're just like, there's a lot of crazy going on with people that are worried about their life, worrying about their jobs, worrying about the country, right? And they're all caught up in those things. Is there anything that you could speak to that may pull? You said you pulled some people off the ledge, which you did with the doctor's office. What can you share in that space?
When we start to feel like everything is out of control, it's often because we don't feel that we have any control over what's going on, and that we are almost just this, that we're a victim to our circumstance.
Yeah.
We're a victim to the economy. We're a victim to the, what's going on in the country, to the way that our industry or our career is going. When we can step out of that place and realize that we actually have more influence over our current circumstances than what we realize, that's actually where power comes from.
Yeah.
And it's stepping out of that place of everything happens to me, and instead realizing that I get to influence everybody around me, and I can control what I can control, which is me.
Yeah.
How I respond to a situation actually creates my reality.
Yeah.
The thoughts that I think about it, the meaning that I give to the situation is what creates my experience, which is why you can have people go through the experience and some people say, oh my gosh, this is, the end of the world, and others move forward and end up creating something amazing.
Yeah.
And something, just a personal story along that note of, so during COVID, I'd already felt like I was meant to do something different. Didn't really have a game plan, or definitely didn't have a business plan, because I was so focused on, I was working from about 5 a.m. until 11 p.m. most nights, trying to make sure everything was working and we had what we needed and patients were getting taken care of and all of those things. My hospital system, as most healthcare organizations did, ended up going through several rounds of layoffs. And we had a round of layoffs where we had 680 people laid off. And my position was one of those that got cut. One of my counterparts whose position got cut, we took the situation very differently. And I looked at it as, oh my gosh, this is my opportunity to actually create something amazing. This is my opportunity to serve in a different capacity. And I don't know what it looks like. I don't have 100% clarity on this yet, but I know everything's going to be okay. And this gives me that chance to actually figure that out.
Right. That's right. That's right.
And I may have been too excited about that, but it's not cool.
I get it.
My counterpart, who I loved, adored, worked with, knew for 15 years, took it very different. The meaning he gave that situation was probably the exact opposite of mine. And I was excited, and he felt like a complete failure. He felt like everything that he had put his blood, sweat, and tears into was gone. His identity was gone. And I don't know this 100% because I've not had, and will never have, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me.
No problem.
I haven't had the opportunity to ask him what happened because, unfortunately, he took that situation, and a week after we got laid off, decided he was going to commit suicide. So, two polar ends of the spectrum in terms of experience. One ended in tragedy, and one ended in triumph,
right,
excitement.
Right.
And it was more than likely the difference in the way that we perceived what had just happened.
Yeah.
And so if somebody's going through an experience where you feel like you're totally out of control, like nothing can change, ask yourself, what's a different perspective that I can have? You will look at something from one direction and you only get to see this much. I wish I had a notebook or something, but you know those spiral notebooks that have like a blue cover and then a brown cover on the back?
Yeah.
Well, if you're just looking at the back side of that, all you see is brown.
Yes.
Now you flip it over and then it's a completely different color. So how can you move? Either physically, mentally, emotionally, how can you move to switch your perspective to be able to see a different angle?
Yeah.
And one of the questions that I love to ask in those situations is, what meaning am I giving to this experience?
Mm-hmm.
And what is a different meaning that I could give? Like, whether it makes any sense at all, just get the creative juices going and ask different questions. Like, okay, so in a work scenario, what I see happen oftentimes is someone will make a comment during a meeting or a presentation or something. And we'll just say the presenter takes that comment as questioning their knowledge, their authority, their level of intellect. Why do they do that? Well, it's because they're probably questioning their creativity, their level of intellect. Yeah. And we see things through the lens that we first see ourselves. So back to that, right?
That's it.
So in that scenario of, okay, they're questioning me, they don't like me, they don't think I'm competent, what is something else that question or comment could have meant? Maybe it's they actually didn't know the answer and they were truly asking me for my opinion because they actually value my opinion. Same question, same comment, totally different experience. The emotion completely shifts. And if you don't know, ask. Ask for seeking clarity always. That is the number one step of, we call them the HP6 or the high performance 6. There's 6 habits of high performers, and seeking clarity is the first and foremost habit to develop that allows you to achieve high performance.
Yeah, I love that because all along the way, it goes back to what you said earlier about we are placing meanings on what we see. We are placing meanings on what happens to us, right? And those meanings dictate the state that we are operating in and where we live, right? And going all the way back to, you kind of said it nicely, but sometimes when we feel claimed victimized, being victimized, everything, the world's coming to an end and we can't see anything else, and that meaning, it controls us, right? And I love how you said that. So, wow,
an example of that too is when I was 16, I was in a really bad car wreck. Actually ended up having the car roll on top of me. And I woke up after 5 days of being in a coma to my physician leaning over my bed and saying the words that no one, especially not a 16-year-old who was training for a marathon at the time, ever wants to hear. He says, "I'm sorry, LynAnn, you were crushed by a car. Your injuries are so severe, you're never going to be able to walk again." And it felt like I got sucker punched in the gut. Wait, what do you mean? As I'm sitting here looking, hearing all the beeping and smell of antiseptic and feeling, pain, looking around going, what does that mean? And initially, I definitely fell into that victim mode of, oh my gosh, this happened to me. This is so unfair. How could this happen? Why me? For me, all of those things, right? Yeah. And initially, that meaning that I gave to that situation is, oh my gosh, now I won't be able to play sports again. That was my life. I loved it. I wanted to go to college. The job that I wanted to be a surgeon. And so I would have needed to be standing. So to me, that also meant you're never going to be able to be successful in a career because you can't walk. Who's going to love you if you're in a wheelchair? Obviously, all of these things that absolutely are not true. Right. But to me, I internalize that as, oh, well, he said I can't do something, therefore this means this.
Right.
And looking back on it, I'm like, well, that was so silly. Okay, so I'd still be able to work. I'd still be able to do all of these things, right? Like I'd still be able to find somebody who loves me. That doesn't mean what I gave it.
Right.
Fortunately, we talked about the power of community. I have amazing family and friends, and my mom would come in and ask she would try to help me reframe. She has no training, she has a nice diploma, but just intuitively she knew. She's like, okay, throwing a pity party is not going to help you get what you want.
Yeah, wow.
And she came and asked me a question, and I'll paraphrase the way that I now interpret it to be, whether she said exactly the word or not. But she basically asked me, like, who are you? Because the girl that I know doesn't let anything stop her.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, who am I?
Wow.
Am I going to be limited by what this well-meaning physician said? Which again, back to trying not to set me up for failure, wanting me to succeed, wanting me to expectations. Told me something that statistically based off of textbook and history and everybody else who had gone through something similar was probable and more likely to happen.
Yeah.
But not definite.
Yeah.
No. And I had that choice. We all have a choice in every single one of those situations of where somebody says something to us or we say it to ourselves.
Yep.
Am I going to accept this? Or am I going to reject it and replace it with something more powerful? And so in that moment, I went, okay, I can either take what he said of you're limited by And you will always have these limits.
Yeah.
Or I could say, no, I'm limitless. Because that's who God told me I was.
Yeah. Yeah. His masterpiece.
This hospital bed, these injuries does not mean anything about my future, my abilities to succeed, and definitely not going to impede the goals that I have for my life.
Yeah.
And so by choosing that, then every step afterwards, or every question, every challenge that came up, it is, who am I? Well, if I'm limitless, the limitless me does this.
Yes.
She pushes one more. She finds one more thing that she can do, even if she fails 15 times.
Yeah.
Even if, she can't move, she can't sit up, if she can't do anything, what is she going to do? Because what is that ultimate goal?
Yeah.
My goal was to have a great career. My goal was to become, intelligent and valuable and be able to help other people.
Yeah.
My goal was to walk again.
Yeah.
And with that being my goal, limitless me said, what's one more thing that I can do today? Okay, well, I can't do very much. So I'm going to ask for support.
Yeah.
Mom, come move my legs.
Yeah, come on, girl.
Help me regain strength.
Yeah.
The physical therapist did that. So you come in and you do this more. Let's do this more.
Yeah.
How can I'll just wiggle my toes.
Yeah.
One minute. Mom, start a timer. Help me with this.
Yeah.
And then it was, okay, well, now I can do some ankle bends, and now, have her help me lift my legs, and I'm doing most of the lifting. It was always this one more thing. What is one more thing I can find to do that gets me one step closer, no matter how small or insignificant it seems?
Yeah.
My goal one time was stand for one more second. One more second.
One more.
And that was treacherous. It was awful.
Ooh.
I did.
Ooh.
By over and over and over, those small one more steps become, now I've summited over 14 14ers, which is a mountain over 14,000 feet.
Yes, what, 4, he said? Holy smokes.
Over 14.
14?
Mm-hmm.
So is Kilimanjaro on your list?
It was when I was in 3rd grade. Funny enough to say that, because I had to do an art project where we drew Kilimanjaro, and I actually am not an artist yet. Somehow it was a competition and I won that. So I was like, oh, I'll climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Haven't thought about it since 3rd grade. So thank you for that.
It was on my list too until I read the book, and I was like, no, never. Oh man, wow. That story is amazing, and just one more. And friend, I would have never, when I met you, you never appeared to have any physical restrictions or limitations.
Oh no, I showed up in stilettos that day.
Yeah.
My doctor told me I'd never wear stilettos again. So sometimes that's another point. If somebody tells you you're not capable of doing something, or you see something that makes you believe you're not capable of it, let that become your fuel. That doctor telling me you're never going to walk again, and then he tried to tell me you're never going to run again, I went, okay, watch me.
Yeah.
And I made it my mission to run, and also learn some lessons along the way. Like, maybe you should start training for a 5 or 10K before training for a marathon after a car wreck. But you learn.
I was going to ask you, did you do a marathon right away after that?
I've trained several times for one since then, ended up injuring myself around 15 or 16 miles in. So again, sometimes starting small and not pushing too hard, but that's not been my goal. I switched to 14ers afterwards.
Okay.
That was a lot easier on my joints. I know that I could if I applied myself again, and I would have a different strategy, right? Like, I failed at trying to run a marathon.
Yeah.
Multiple times, and ended up hurting myself a lot more. I learned from that, and now I could take that back and actually do it if I wanted to.
Well, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and to come back from that injury. My wife is trained; she's run one, and I always thought I would until I saw it, and I said never. So, but so I applaud you for even thinking about that. Because that is climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, something like that, from where you were, right? I mean, because it's a lot of work here and physically, here in the heart and mind. All those things come together. LynAnn, so you do that. So,
what is the best strategy you've seen for people to actually reach their goals?
That's a great question. I would say one is accepting everything where it is first. This is where I am today. I mean, I've done all I've gotten. I've done everything to get me to this point. Now, I can either, like you said, accept where I am, or I can say, okay, if somebody else has done it before, I always hear about if someone else has done it before, how was it done? Right? Is it something that I can do, or do my skills allow me to do it differently and still get it accomplished? So it's really about assessing where you are, and then begin to get clear on where you want to end up.
Yep.
What's the why in this whole thing? You know, why am I struggling to maintain conversations with Geoff 6 months ago when my marketing director and my sister passed away and made all this stuff happen? You know, it'll be a year this past month because it was a commitment made first. Make sure there's a commitment and can see a way to the other side. So I don't know if I'm answering your question. It's kind of throw a lot of different things in with the time we have. It's a great question. But recognizing where you are, knowing where you want to be, and then take those little steps you talked about. You know, and don't quit.
Yeah.
You're in it until the end, right? And your injury, listening to you overcome your injury, you made me think about when I was in college, in high school, and I hurt my knee, and my whole dream was to go to the NFL, and then they said you'd never really walk again, you'd never get your scholarship. You know, so all those things you were talking about reminded me of what that process was, and I graduated from high school with a full ride to a D1 school, and never looked back academically. And so to know what you're talking about through experiencing and then seeing you do it, and just tremendous things in your life. Man, this has been fantastic time today. And, I keep you forever. I've already kept you 15 minutes longer than I normally do because you just fire my. Well, it hasn't been normal. I mean, I've just been blessed to have some fantastic people like you lately. So I know we're in the right place, and we're serving the right population. And having you be part of today has just been an outstanding session.
It's been wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So before you get away, how do people reach you? And do you have anything going on in your trainings that you might want to mention coming up or currently in right now?
Yeah. So if anybody wants to reach me, email or LinkedIn is usually best. Okay. LinkedIn is just LynAnn Weaver, LynAnn Weaver. And my email is lynann@healthcareelevation.com. And I'd love to offer your guests a free gift if they'd like it. We talked about high performance. And so we have an assessment, usually $97, but it'll be free for your guests. If you go to healthcareelevation.com/HPI for high performance indicator, all lowercase, you'll be able to take an assessment that really lets you see what areas of your life to put more focus into so that you can experience more of what you want and less of what you don't want.
Man, that's incredible. So say, what is it again?
It's a high performance indicator assessment.
Okay.
And so it's a great first step for developing some of that self-awareness to really identify where your starting point is in the areas that will make you most successful, and also help you identify where to put your focus on to move the needle in a way that you'll notice some big impact.
And that's incredible because that's something that everybody can use. So thank you so much for offering that. And I'll make sure that we get it. We'll get the recordings out. And wow.
Absolutely. And if you're a physician, we do have some free master classes coming up. that you can see on our website, healthcareelevation.com, and just go to the event section and find the master classes where we talk about ways to grow your practice without burning out and ways to elevate your leadership and really create that higher level of success by first defining what it is.
Well, you know, and docs out there, you know, 'cause we do have a few of them, and there'll be more. They're still under pressure. Their whole industry is still under pressure, and so don't let your ego be the reason why you miss an opportunity to tap into something that I believe is going to help do those things without the burnout, help reset where they're heading without the burnout, and then have someone like yourself committed to making sure they get to the finish line. So thank you for that information. And all right, I'm really going to let you go now.
All right. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You do the same. Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, everybody, listen. I won't keep you any longer. And make sure you go back and listen to this over and over and over again. I mean, I have several pages of notes, and I'm supposed to be hosting. So I know that there's information in there that I miss, and I'm going to go back and do the same thing. So but I'll leave you with this. What's your perception in your life, and what are you giving meaning to? The things that are either holding you back, or things that you've been avoiding, or meanings to the things that you're really supposed to step into in your purpose. And is that stinking thinking continuing to stop you from elevating and conquering the things that life has given you? The comeback, baby, is all about strength. The comeback is all about test. The comeback is all about letting you know that, hey, you've been chosen to do something great, but you're not going to get it easy. So go back and check out what my friend is talking about. Take advantage of the information that she's offering to you, especially that assessment. I'm going to see if I can get one myself. And stay tuned for another Conversations with Geoff. Share this information, subscribe, and don't let that stinking thinking stop you from reaching your destiny. You should never be denied what's been given into your heart. All right, baby. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.